mean to bother you, but I got a crazy question. I'm running by random strangers.
Okay.
So it's a project I'm working on. It's a video project.
All right.
So I actually have a video camera here.
Okay.
And so I'm recording people's response to a question.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if I could do that with you.
Okay.
What I would do is I would just like set it on the shelf and then just ask you. I can tell you the question ahead of time.
Yeah, what's the question?
So the question is, what do you think happens after this life, and how did you get to your belief? Like what was the process of like how that came about? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that a fair question? And it's
Sure.
a big question.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah.
So just put it right there. So what's your name, first of all?
Jalen.
Jalen.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Nice to meet you,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the question, what do you think happens after this life? How did you come to that belief? What do you think?
Okay. So I do believe in an afterlife. I believe in heaven and hell. Myself identify as a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely believe in heaven and hell. How did I come to that belief is the second part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I grew up in the church, in the Christian church. My dad was a pastor. Mine was a minister. So I definitely grew up with the teachings of Christ and the Gospels and sort of these ideas that a heaven and hell exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I grew up, more and more started doubting, started questioning and grappling with issues of suffering, with issues of fairness, of like who deserves to go to heaven or hell.
Mm-hmm.
I came to the conclusion that I believe in a heaven and hell just based off of who I know God to be,
Mm-hmm.
as a benevolent, all-loving, all-knowing creature.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the system that all have the opportunity to be saved by grace and to go and be with God in heaven in the afterlife, based on who He is, based on His character and how He exists sort of in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
And based on what I believe now, I believe in what He says will be in the afterlife, basically.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so just so you know, I'm a Christian too, from a church background. One of the reasons I make these recordings is I'm trying to show people from churches that we can have these kind of conversations right in a grocery store. That's why I'm doing it.
Nice. Okay.
So, but so you believe some people will end up in heaven, some will end up in hell, right?
Yeah.
What would be the difference between you and someone who ends up in hell? You know?
So, frankly, there is, in regard to sort of what I believe about sin and character, I'm no better than anybody. I think the only difference is that I have chosen to sort of accept the gift of grace. I've chosen to believe that I am a sinner in need of grace. And because of me actively choosing to receive God's grace and to pursue Christ and to pursue Jesus, that's sort of what makes me different, but not necessarily sort of like a higher morality per se.
Yeah.
But it's just that I've chosen sort of, I think I've just sort of looked at sort of what God says about who He is and who I am, and believe what He says about sort of existence in the world, and based off my belief, I think that's the difference between me.
Yeah. So would you say your faith, what you're trusting in, is different? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No,
I'm trying not to do that, but I'm trying to. So I want to hear you right. So what would your faith ultimately be in? I guess maybe that'd be the question.
I think my faith ultimately is in Jesus dying on the cross for my sins, Jesus rising from the dead, and based off of Him dying for my sins, I now have access to God. And now that I have access to God, I now have access to heaven.
Yeah.
So I guess my faith, is different than others. Yes, it's different. I put in my faith maybe in something different than a person who's going to hell is.
Right.
I suppose. Yeah.
Right. So morally, you're not necessarily better or worse than someone who ends up in hell.
Morally, I'm not better or worse than anybody.
Yeah.
I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I'm in agreement. It's like, Christians aren't perfect.
Not at all.
We're just forgiven.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Absolutely.
And why would it's a constant sense of awe and wonder that God would choose
That's right.
me.
That's right.
And
That's
it
right.
and it keeps me wanting to tell other people, because it's
Absolutely.
like, who am I to keep this to myself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's the good news of the gospel. I think for me personally, reading the Gospels just as they are, as a just you can read it as a sacred text, as information as a religious text. But when you just read it and you're reading about the life of Christ, it's so, like you said, awe-inspiring. The way he lived, how he's called us to live, and it's also in some ways challenging. Like he challenges sort of like, what does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to live? And the particular ways in which he does challenge us, while it's sort of uncomfortable, I've endorsed it. I've sort of put my life into it, and it's paid off dividends. You know, so it's really.
When I communicate with people who don't believe, I find that their negative impressions of the Bible or Christianity, it's almost always based on other people's opinions of the Bible rather than reading it for themselves.
That's right. That's
you
right.
know?
That's right.
And I do talk to a lot of people that come from a church background, and I wanted to like really ask you like what you put your faith in, because the majority of people will say, well, I'm not perfect. They get that from church, maybe, but I'm good enough. And so I think God would say I'm a pretty good person, you know? And it's like, well, if that's true, then we didn't need Jesus to die for us.
That's right,
you know?
yeah.
And so their faith is really in their goodness somehow, or their repentance, I'm really sorry, or something they've done to earn it.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
That's to me, that's sort of the opposite of what Christ teaches, Paul teaches. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm fully accepting that it's not me, it's all God.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally just a gift that I've been given, and it's not reliant upon how good I am. It's all based on how good God is.
Yeah. So now, do you actively like share your faith with others? Like, how do you live out your Christian life? You know, like,
That's a fantastic question. I would say that I know I answer it this way. I know I'm unapologetically Christian, but I definitely like skate around, sort of talking to non-believers about my faith, because I don't want to come off as sort of this sort of Bible thumping, morally superior, so-called morally superior Christian person trying to tell you that you're wrong. So I definitely I take the approach of trying to intentionally build.
I'm getting the pineapple one.
Sure, which one?
The smaller Vita Coco.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
all right,
About
thanks.
So I try to take the approach of like intentionally building relationships with people. I work in a secular environment, work with coworkers that don't believe. So I try to build relationships with people, get to know them, they get to know me. That way, when I share my faith, it's more authentic, it's vulnerable, it's sort of like it's true. Like they know me well enough to know that I'm not trying to. I don't have an agenda to judge or condemn you. It's just all based out of love.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my approach I take, but I do think that I can be more, like you're doing right now. Like I can be more like,
I try to have a mixture of both. I mean, I have people in my life that, of course, I'm like spending time with and getting to know. But like to me, it's like the gospel. I can't keep it to myself, and so like I mean, I'm just doing my grocery shopping, but even on an everyday basis, it's like I run into random strangers and man, I want to share it. You know.
Absolutely.
And so I've kind of learned to ask some good questions to get people talking about what they believe, and then I just try to meet them where they're at. So, So I don't necessarily believe, my goal is not to like win a convert in a single conversation.
That's good.
Of course I want everyone to be a Christian someday, but I want to do something that God can and will use in people's lives. And if I never see them again, which the vast majority of people I don't, sometimes I run into people again, but not too often. But at least, hey, there was a stranger that reached out to them and they heard some truth about the gospel wherever they were at, and try to take them the next step, on their faith journey,
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if you've ever heard of Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron, their ministry.
Kirk Cameron
is he was on.
He's an actor, right?
He's an actor, and so he's a Christian.
Never Left Behind. Did he do that?
Yeah, well, he does the Left Behind series and all that now. But anyway, so Ray Comfort is an evangelist from New Zealand, and but he's in California now, and they've got this ministry where they use the law to, like, so like if you had said something like, well, I think I'm a good enough person, you know, I would say, oh, can I give you a little good person test to see how you would do on that, right? And, you know, like, because you're saying, well, I'm good enough to go to heaven, right? Let me give you a little good person test. How many lies have you told? Well, quite a few. Can you remember them all? No. What would that make you? Well, I guess a liar. How many, you know, like, go through some of the 10 Commandments, you know? You haven't murdered anyone, but have you hurt people with your words, like Jesus said, you know? Like, don't have anger towards your brother. Have you done that, you know? Adultery, you know, have you looked with lust, you know, have you used God's name in vain? And then to use that to show people their need for forgiveness, because it's like, I'm a good person, but they're judging themselves compared to other people that they know are worse than them, like the drug dealer on the corner or whatever,
that's right,
you know.
That's right.
So, but by God's standard, we're not so
all
good.
have fallen short.
Yeah. And so the whole thing with all have sinned and fallen short.
Yeah.
What I've found is if you tell people that, they think, oh, well, then I'm not so bad because everyone's like me and there's safety in numbers. And
That's right.
and God won't send everyone to hell, so I'm all good. You know?
Yeah.
And so to personalize their sin, so they see their personal need for the Savior. So then that's and usually by the end of that short little good person test, I'll ask, do you want to know, you know, like how would you do standing before God in judgment? Will I be guilty? You know, how can you be found, you know, blameless in His sight? The only way is if you take the punishment you deserve, or if someone else did, who is worthy, a worthy sacrifice in your place, and that's when I start talking about Christ. So it's a great way to share the gospel, and they have a lot of different videos. They're more like
Kurt Cameron, you say, right?
It's Kurt Cameron. I'll give you the website. But they have a website called livingwaters.com, and just tons of resources and training videos and everything on how to share your faith.
That's great.
So I really highly recommend it.
Yeah.
And it's
something I definitely grapple with a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I get in a lot of conversations. I'm more conversational, maybe a little bit more than they are. You know, it's a lot of times, even in a grocery store like this, I'll end up talking for 45 minutes, or I have to go back and get like different groceries.
Yeah,
some of it's got
like melted.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I just want to help people realize, you know, there are people all around us. And when I first started realizing this, it was like it opened my eyes up. Like, man, I just walked by someone. You know, of course I can't share with everyone, but usually what I'll do is I'll go grocery shopping. I'm kind of like one-track mind, so I got to focus on what I'm getting. Like when I walked up to you, you were like really looking at what you were going to buy, because it's like you're really thinking about what. So I'm the same way. So I'll get my groceries, and then on my way to the cash register, I'll think, okay, I'm going to stop and talk to at least one person, you know. And so it's just a little goal I set. I'm actually a high school teacher, so cool. I don't do this all day long, but I'm just on my way home and stopping at the store, you know, or I stop at a park, or I stop wherever, coffee shop, and try to have a conversation, you know.
That's awesome.
So
that's great. Yeah, it's fantastic.
So your name's Jalen. Jalen. Okay.
What church do you go to?
It's called New Life. So I can give you the information. I want to give you that website too. Where do you go?
No, so I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. So I moved here. I went to college in Maine and moved here for a job. So I go to a recent church plant. It's called Renewal Church of Chicago. It's in West Town. It's in West Town.
Okay.
Right now we have a church out of high school, Wales High School.
Okay. Wales? Wales? Oh, Wells.
Yeah, Wells.
Oh, I know Wells.
Yeah. So we just
Ashland.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so we just have an auditorium center.
Okay.
We moved there about a year ago now.
Yeah.
So but we've only been around for 3 years. We're a recent church plant.
Cool.
And,
There's
really
so
cool.
many new churches starting. It's really exciting. To see.
Yeah.
So, you know, all around Bridgeport. You know, our church is kind of grown past the new church plant stage, and now we have a lot of families with young kids.
Nice.
And so, but then all the new people that are moving into Bridgeport, they go on the, like, we're kind of like a young family church, so they're going to some of these other churches that are a little bit newer, which is great. There's as I talk to people like this, there are enough non-Christians to go on.
That's right. That's true.
And the more churches, the
harvest
better.
comes from the workers of feet.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, let me see.
Come and dance and